Welcome. This is Business Today. It's the 24th of February and we're ready with our local and global business updates for you. Well, the Postgraduate Institute of Management is a semi-autonomous body affiliated to the University of Jawadhampura. Its objective is to promote advanced educational and professionalism in management in Sri Lanka, and they use the postgraduate instruction, training, research and development in various branches of management and administrative studies. PIM, famously known as, has been in the forefront in breeding leaders and character and competence. The Postgraduate Institute of Management are equipped with cutting-edge knowledge and complementary skills needed to perform in both private and public sector alike. So there we go. Today's selected area of interest is the Postgraduate Institute of Management. So we have a representative from that particular institute joining us today to talk to us in particular about management education. So PIM is turning 30 years this year, so we'd like to introduce someone who has transitioned from being an engineer of electrical to engineer of hearts and minds. We'd like to welcome our guest today, Professor Ajantha Dharmasiri. He's the director of the Postgraduate Institute of Management. A very good evening to you.
Good evening to you, Sakuni.
So it's an important year for you at PIM, that's the Postgraduate Institute of Management. Talk to us a little bit about the journey, some of its key achievements.
Well, PIM has been in the forefront in producing leaders for the nation. We consider ourselves as the leader breeders in terms of developing leaders with character and competence, and our mission is to produce leaders who have a global presence and local pulse. And this has been the success story for the past 30 years, I would say. And we have produced more than 100 CEOs for the nation and more than 1,000 senior managers, and there are more than 10,000 people who have benefited from various programs offered by PIM. And it's the only self-financed management entity, or rather postgraduate entity, among the postgraduate institutes coming under the purview of the Ministry of Higher Education, and we are the only higher education institution in the government sector who got the ISO 9000 certification, and we are in the process of getting the AACSB accreditation, which is the premier accreditation body in the world, and they have accredited only 5% of the business schools around the world, and we are in that journey of getting accredited by the Association of Advanced Collegiate Schools of Business, and that will be the future of PIM.
Professor, so you turned 30 this year. What special arrangements are underway to commemorate this celebration?
Well, we are still working on it because we are eagerly waiting to launch the next building project, which is the expansion of the current building, and also a few other religious, social, cultural activities associated with that, and I would suggest that we would formally communicate the details in time to come, but this year is significant because we consider it as the year of excellence in terms of signifying this landmark achievement.
Right. So now I'd like to talk a little bit about something that's very specific to you. I'd like to talk about management education. Let's start off with what you mean by management education.
Well, I would say every manager can be a practitioner. And we have a task in front of you in turning a practitioner to a professional. So a practitioner might be doing things over and over again in the same manner without really deeply thinking why they are doing what they're supposed to do. But when we educate them and when they understand what they do and the relevance of it and the context around it and the significance of what they do, and we can say we convert a practitioner into a professional. A professional knows why they are doing what they are supposed to do. That thinking part comes into the scene. So it's a case of producing thinking doers, not just merely doing things, who are not just mere executors, executives who can think and act in a strategic sense.
Right. So in the case of Sri Lanka, is this sort of training, this formal education, is it restricted to managers or those of a higher recruitment or employment band?
Well, I would say management, in a way, it's going through uncommon search of common sense. Someone might say management is all about common sense. I tend to disagree. In a way, management is common sense, but you have to find the uncommon search in common sense. In other words, the depth involved, the breadth involved, where management is the bread and butter of every profession. Say we need to plan, we need to organize, we need to lead, and we need to control. Those are the four pillars of management. So whatever the function that you represent, whatever the profession that you come from, you need management. That's the beauty of it. But at the same time, the myth around the world is that people think we know how to manage, but they don't realize that the soft aspects, the subtle aspects, the strategic aspect that they need to master, if they do that diligently, they can achieve better results. They can show better performance, and they can excel in whatever they do. So I would say management is a common set of competencies that people need to embrace, irrespective of their professional background. So every executive can enhance their excellence in terms of becoming a better manager, and even moving beyond becoming a better leader.
Right. So what sort of factors should one consider when developing the characteristics you need to become a good manager, and how should they develop it?
Well, Sakuni, I would say the starting point could be a thorough inward look, to have a SWOT analysis. What are your strengths, and what are your weaknesses, and what are the opportunities in front of you, and what are the threats in front of you. So if you do a thorough SWOT on yourself, on oneself, that gives a clear understanding of the way forward. And one needs to have a clear purpose in life, and we say a purpose-driven life. The great achievers in the world, the people who have excelled in the world, have one common factor: they were all purpose-driven. So they had a clear vision as to what their end destination, what their dream that they are aspiring to achieve. And they had the mission of going for that, the reason why they need to excel. And they had the passion in reaching their vision through mission.
So tonight's discussion is management education. Joining us tonight is Professor Ajanta Dharmasuri, the director of the Postgraduate Institute of Management. We'd like to talk a little bit about the role of formal education in Sri Lanka and the impact it has on the country's economy.
Well, I should confine my discussion to the management education and going little beyond to the postgraduate education, and that's where my speciality, I would say. So I would tend to say that we have a huge opportunity, because we see the need of education in a changing world. As Buddha said long time ago, only permanent thing in the whole world is change. Everything is changing. Even the rate of change has accelerated. In such a changing world, we need to update ourselves. We need to upgrade ourselves. So we need to have a mechanism to enhance competencies and to ensure that we need the required confidence and competence. So I think the role of education is rapidly changing. It's not just producing people with theoretical knowledge to fill their head with loads and loads of theory. The idea is, I like what Aldous Huxley said some time ago. At the end of the day, what matters is not how much you know, but how much you have done. Knowing should lead to doing, and doing should produce the desired results. So the simple point is that you need to ensure that the knowledge becomes deliverable. In other words, your knowledge should get converted into something tangible, a product or a service. So you contribute to the socio-economic well-being of a country. So in simple terms, your education should be aimed at producing a wholesome person, a person with a well-rounded maturity, who can think and act in a mature manner, who would see the big picture, at the same time paying attention to the details. So strategic on one side, operational on the other side, emotionally balanced, not just intellectually brilliant, but emotionally sound as well. So we need to have a well-rounded human being at the end of the day. And as someone said in a recent seminar, which I attended overseas, first you have to make the human being, then the person would deliver. The human doing should happen next.
Right. So that's just in general about how that affects the Sri Lankan economy. I'd like to move into some particular case studies from here at home in Sri Lanka. Let's talk about some successful stories in Sri Lanka.
Okay, I can give you a couple of stories from PIM. So what we had been doing differently. So I'm very happy to say, Sakuni, I mean, every time when we do a survey among the postgraduates from PIM, the fact emerges is that 1 out of 5 end up becoming entrepreneurs. So our MBA program produces entrepreneurs to the nation. And I believe in economic expansion through entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs are the people who bring new businesses to the country. They bring new revenue, and they create a small and medium scale enterprises through which the economic expansion takes place. So we have just started an incubation center, and we call it PIM Genesis. So through PIM Genesis, we plan in 5 years down the line to double this ratio. So instead of 1 out of 5 turning as an entrepreneur, in 5 years' time, we will have 2 out of 5 becoming entrepreneurs. So in other words, we will have better, bigger, brighter contribution to the Sri Lankan economy.
Right. So some of the companies that you worked with are Nestle, Unilever, and Maersk. And you worked with other local companies in Saudi Arabia, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. How has the experience been, and what we learned out of it?
Well, my initial exposure to multinationals as a young management trainee or technical management trainee or a production engineer, you might describe in different ways. And the second exposure to the overseas companies was through consulting. I had been doing consultancy assignments in more than 15 countries by now. So it's a case of having global presence with local pulse. So my range of observations, I always take it a point that Sri Lankans have talent. And whenever I meet Sri Lankan expatriates, particularly when I go to US for my summer teaching, I teach in Price College of Oklahoma, where I'm an adjunct professor in international human resource management. I thoroughly enjoy teaching a classroom which is a representation of the globe, where you get different nationalities coming to learn international human resource management. So my observation is that we have more similarities than differences across the globe. So we are becoming a global community. At the same time, we need to appreciate the local identity. So always it's a case of reaching the globe with local roots. So you need to keep the values intact. You need to ensure that we have the Sri Lankan identity in terms of being ethical, being authentic, being genuine, being hospitable. At the same time, we have lots of things to share with the global scenario, and then we have lots of things to learn from the rest of the world. For example, being efficient, being punctual, being more productive, some of the things that we can learn from other countries. So it's a case of, say, getting the best from the West and the East. So it's a best of both worlds, I would say.
So when you work with all of these different companies in different parts of the world, you need to ensure that you deliver what you promised. You need to make sure that you give the best of the best in terms of the quality. What steps do you take to ensure that you deliver what you promise?
Well, I think the starting point, as far as I am concerned, now I'm putting the hat of a consultant. I would say the client-consultant agreement. There has to be a clarity between the client and the consultant. So what the client expects the consultant to deliver, and the consultant's agreement to the client. Now lots of consultants' assignments end up in confusion because there's no clarity at the outset what the client really wants and what the consultant has to deliver. So there has to be that agreement. That is the starting point. And the second thing is try to impress the client by showing the previous achievements. but you got to deliver the results. Proof of the pudding is the eating. There's no shortcut in terms of achieving results. You have to go through the hard path in terms of showing the results in a collaborative manner and making sure that you deliver concrete results as planned,
Right.
as agreed.
In line with the quality aspect of this particular part, I'd like to talk a little bit about lots of other mushrooming industries in institutes that offer similar services. What can you do to guarantee the quality that those institutes offer?
Well, I'm a bit careful in treading into this path because I don't want to be monkey praising its own tail. But I see the sad reality, Sakuni, that lots of, I would say, fly-by-night type of shops offering MBAs from different universities around the world, and they say they have the accreditation or they have this one, they have the validation, blah, blah, and so on. But my simple observation is that you ask from the business leaders and you ask from their bosses, have they gone through a transformational experience? My observation is the acid test typical MBA program should have is, are the participants going through a transformational experience? The way they started and the way they end, is there a clear shift with regard to their capabilities, with regard to their confidence, with regard to their character? There has to be a shift from where they begin to where they end. If there's no transformation taking place inside the participants, it's just equivalent to someone buying a degree by paying some dollars. So I would tend to disagree with some of those shortcuts because no pains, no gains. So we believe in high form of quality and high form of relevance. A good MBA program should have the highest quality in terms of having the cutting edge contents and the world-class conduct in terms of delivering the knowledge. At the same time, they have to be relevant in the local context, in the regional context, and in the global context. If we just talk about 20 years outdated stuff, just recycling of knowledge, then we are outdated, we are obsolete. We got to go with the changing world. And that's where we have faculty who have international exposure. And there are people who are teaching in Australia, who are teaching in United States of America, and who bring that wealth of cutting edge knowledge in sharing with our students. So we have a memorandum of understanding with University of New South Wales, Australia, where they offer 4 PhD scholarships every year, no strings attached, 100% sponsored. So there, they even send their faculty to Sri Lanka to conduct workshops. So we see the knowledge transfer taking place. We see the exploration and exchange clearly taking place. So those are some of the things that differentiate a particular institute from the rest with regard to quality and with regard to the relevance. Those are the 2 key differentiators that I would humbly happy to share.
Right. Professor, I'd like to ask you to wear your observer's cap once again. From an observer's point of view, what are some of the market trends that you've observed in Sri Lanka over the past few years?
Okay, again, let me confine my discussion to the management education, where that's where I continue to be a learner. I don't say I'm an expert, I'm a learner, and I learn every day. So my observation is that there's this trend of passion for knowledge. MBA demand is getting increasingly high. During our time when I graduated from University of Moratuwa as an engineer, the first thing we needed to do was to settle and to get a stable income. Then only we started thinking about postgraduate education. And now the trend is different. When someone finishes the first degree, they want to continue to do a master's degree and perhaps to get into the doctoral program as well. So the continuity of learning is happening in a big way now, and lots of youngsters, they want to continue rather than stopping at the first degree, moving into the second degree, and perhaps getting into the doctoral level as well. So the continuity of learning is one key trend that I see. And I would say that's a positive trend, Sakuni. But again, something which is little disturbing, which is not so positive, could be that some people resort to shortcuts. And they want quick, rapid results without going through the proper path. So for example, I have seen many advertisements in Sunday newspapers where the assignments related to MBA program will be done at a nominal fee. So there's a professional service being emerged so that the students can outsource their assignments to a third party, a professional party, on a fee living basis. I would say that's a fundamental blunder, and they fool themselves, and they will be the losers, because they get a document produced and they get the marks, but they don't have the required transformation taking place inside them. So these are some of the disturbing trends that I see. And I have seen some paper advertisements about MBA saying you don't have to attend lectures, you don't have to change your lifestyle, we will give you the certificate and you have to pay a nominal fee. These are all disturbing trends where education is sold for money. We are not for that. We still maintain the rigor required to ensure quality. And we are one of the few MBA programs around the world we have not got rid of the final project, which might be a difficult one, which might need a lot of resources, which might require a lot of effort from the students, but we see the value of it. Once you have to do the final project as the completion of your MBA program, as the culmination of your learning process, that gives you ample confidence, and that gives you tremendous satisfaction once you do a real quality job. And I think that differentiates us from some of the fly-by-night programs where they don't consider quality, they don't consider the content, they just want to give something and to earn some money.
Professor, this is the question that was sent to us through our Facebook page, which is Business Today Channel I. The question directed to us was between jumping, once you finish your first degree, jumping between that to the second question. Quickly, Doctor, Professor, if you can run through it, how important is it to culminate some sort of work experience before you proceed towards your master's or PhD?
I think that's an excellent question. My simple observation is that in a good master's program, you need to relate what you learn to a typical working environment, because your workplace should be your social laboratory. And in the master's program, the way they are designed, there's a heavy application orientation. You learn something in the classroom, and there has to be a connection to the workplace. If you don't have that classroom workplace nexus, there's something lacking. So then you can't grasp the practical relevance of what you learn. And when I start my first module in the MBA, which is a managing organization, and I ask people to raise hands, those who have studied management elsewhere, and the majority raise their hands. And I say, you will learn management in a different way, unlike your undergraduate studies, unlike your professional studies. What you have to do is, now you have the opportunity to relate what you learn to your workplace, and reflect what you learn and apply them in your workplace. So the learning, doing connection, and applying what you learn to the real working experience, the real world problems, is the beauty of master's education. So the point I would like to stress here, Sakuni, is that for that to happen, you need working experience. Then only the learning becomes enriching.
Right, so among the many messages he sort of put out today, I think the strongest message he said was that you need to make sure you convert your knowledge into something tangible, be it a product or a service. With that, we'd like to thank you very much for being with us this evening, Professor Ajanta Dharmasuri, the Director of PIM, that's the Postgraduate Institute of Management. Thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you for the invitation.